Just let me just get this zoomed in here. Okay, so I thought I would put together just a quick video that kind of summarizes everything that's on the quiz tomorrow that I have affectionately called, so what does the quiz look like? And so I've taken this problem straight off of your homework assignment. This is problem number 5, and technically that's problem number 5 from the quadratic formula assignment. It's also number 5 from the completing the square assignment. And so this is essentially what your quiz is going to do, is it's going to give you one problem like that. And one side of the page is going to have you do one thing and the other side is going to have you do another. So on side number 1, the first thing it's going to ask you for is completing the square. Okay, so to do that, completing the square, the first thing I'm doing is moving the 10 to the other side. So y plus 10 equals, and then since I'm doing that, I'm also going to factor out the negative 2 at the same time. That really needs to be done like right away. You can't go any further in the problem until you take out that negative 2. So this would be negative 2, and then I'd be left with n squared. And then when I do negative 12 divided by negative 2, I get a positive 6. And then I leave that space there, right? Okay, and then to figure out what goes in that space, that's where I cut this in half, which is 3, and then square it, which is 9. But then I have to think about the fact that 9 that I just added over here on the right side is really being multiplied by a negative 2. So I actually added negative 18 over here, meaning I need to add negative 18 or just subtract 18 over here, okay, to balance. So what I do to one side, I do the exact same thing to the other. And that will allow me to rewrite this as y minus 8, because 10 minus 18 is 8, equals negative 2. And then this piece here, the n squared plus 6n plus 9, factors to n plus 3 squared. So that right there is just the completing the square process. Okay? Let's see if I can zoom this in a little bit more. Well, too much. That's just completing the square. So if that part was difficult for you, you may want to stop right now and just go back and practice some of the completing the square problems before we go any further. Okay? The next thing, once we've completed the square you're going to be asked for, is to find the vertex. Now, the good news is about the vertex that the vertex is really easy to find when it's in this form, right? This is vertex form. So I just need to find my h and my k. The one thing you do want to remember is that the h and the k are sort of backwards from what they really would be, because this is supposed to be y minus k. So my k value is actually a positive 8. My h value is actually a negative 3. But I could look right up there and say my vertex would be negative 3, positive 8. Okay? And then the next thing it's going to ask me for are the zeros. Now, from the completing the square side, this is how I would expect you to find the zeros. Is we're going to plug a 0 in for y, okay? So really I'm getting rid of that y there, and that's going to leave me with this. Negative 8 equals negative 2 times n plus 3 squared. And now I'm solving. So I'm going to divide by negative 2, divide by negative 2, and I get 4 equals n plus 3 squared. And then I'm going to take a square root on both sides. And of course I'm going to remember that when I take that square root, I get a plus or a minus 2. And that equals n plus 3. And this actually goes into two separate equations. I get n plus 3 might equal positive 2. And n plus 3 might equal negative 2. So to solve this from here, I would subtract 3 on each side. And I'm left with n equals negative 1. And here I would subtract 3 on each side, and I end up with n equals negative 5. Okay. And then the last thing I would be asked to do, and I'm not going to do this here, would be to draw a graph of this based on the vertex and the zeros. And what you really should be looking for when you're graphing that is this vertex really should fall dead center between your two zeros. And I can tell that it does because halfway between -1 and -5 is -3. Okay? So that would be kind of the last thing on that side. Okay? Then you flip the quiz over. And it starts you over with this same problem, but this time you're going to keep it in standard form rather than converting it. And it's going to ask you, once again, I believe the first thing it asks you for is the zeros. I hope that I'm right about that, but that's first. But okay, so I'm going to ask you for the zeros. And if you're keeping it in standard form, that means using the quadratic formula. I think it even specifically says use the quadratic formula. Okay, so for quadratic formula, that's going to start out like -b, so that'd be +12, plus minus square root of -12 squared minus 4 times -2 times -10 all over 2 times -2. And on this quiz, it's really the process that's important to me. So I am going to be pretty particular that you're showing work with things like this and things like this. I know some of you have gotten good enough at it that you feel like you don't have to write it all down, and I get that. But for this quiz, the work is going to be just as important as the outcome. Okay? So let's see. We are at 12 plus or minus. This part in here, let's make sure I didn't bite off more than I can chew here, mental math-wise. So that's going to be 144 minus, I think that's going to come out to be 64. I hope that's right. Over -4, okay? Which I would then, and normally, well, yeah, I'm going to put it down here. This becomes 12 plus 8 over -4. That 8 came from the square root of 64. Or x equals 12 minus 8 over -4. Okay, so I kind of broke into two separate pieces here. Whenever you're finding the zeros, there's going to be somewhere in the process that you have to split, right? Depending on how the problem's set up. This is going to be 20 over 4, which is -5. And this is going to be, let's see, 4 over -4, which is -1. But notice that I got the exact same answers there that I did here. I guess I switched to x somewhere along the way. Sorry, that should have been n's all the way through. But that doesn't matter so much. As long as you got the same answers here and here, you're good to go. And then we need to find the vertex. Okay. And the vertex here, we're going to be using the -b over 2a process that we talked about. Okay. So in this particular problem, it would be -b, so that's +12, over 2 times -2. Well, that's 12 over -4, which is -3. And then to find k, I'm going to take that -3 and put it back in the original problem. And I really strongly recommend that you kind of just put this all into your calculator in one shot. Whatever your, oh, and I already messed it up. Anytime you've got a negative, it does need to be wrapped in parentheses. But putting it all in your calculator like this will ensure that you don't mess up the order of operations. And let's see, this is going to be 9, so -18 plus 36, so that's going to be +18, and 18 minus 10 comes out to +8. And then these two numbers together become your vertex, -3, 8. And then once again, I would ask you to take this information and graph the quadratic. But I want you to notice something, that I got the same answers here, and I got the same answers here. Okay? So my recommendation will be to start with the side of the quiz that you feel the most confident about, the completing the square side or the quadratic formula side. Okay? Do that side, and then when you go to do the other one, be cross-checking your work. Make sure you're getting the same answers in both places, including the graph. So each one of these is going to have you graph it. You should have a picture of the exact same parabola on both sides of your quiz. And that's it. So it's one problem, and then you just do everything and everything, okay, with that one equation. Okay? So if you need help on something specific within here, definitely now is the time to get that help. You are welcome to text or email me tonight, or you can check in with me at the beginning of class tomorrow. I'll make sure we go over anything that we need to, but I thought this would be at least helpful in figuring out what it is that you need help with. Okay? All right, have a great night.